S-Men. Red Skull, being the dastardly devil he is, made some backup plans in the case of his eventual demise. One such plan was a clone of himself who would come back in the modern era. Okay, side note, why do villains do this, making clones of themselves? The individual villain still kind of passes away, so if they move their consciousness or something, that kind of makes sense, but I don't get why this is a thing. But I'm pretty sure this clone isn't even like that. I'm gonna make myself upset, so let's just continue. Basically, waking up in this new modern world with mutants and all that jazz, this new Red Skull decided that he was going to dig up the body of Professor X and steal some of his brain, granting himself some telepathy, and as an antithesis to the X-Men, he created the S-Men. Yes, very creative. This was a group of individuals that the Red Skull had empowered using crazy mad science and magic. Almost all of them were pretty quickly taken out of existence by Magneto when this Red Skull tried to make a camp to exterminate mutants. Bad move, buddy. Bad move. Number 9. ZODIAC Cartel. Honestly, it's a pretty cool idea for a group. This villainous group of hand-picked business leaders who were all born under different zodiac signs, as their leader Cornelius Van Lunt, or Taurus, was heavily into astrology. Each member, while representing a zodiac sign, also was based in a different American city, and their main goal was world economic and political domination. Its members originally were, other than Cornelius, Scorpio, Jake Fury, Aquarius, Darren Bentley, Aries, Marcus Lassiter, Cancer, Jack Cleveno, Capricorn, Willard Weir, Gemini, Joshua Link, Leo, Daniel Radford, Libra, Gustav Brandt, Pisces, Noah Perricone, Sagittarius, Harlan Vargas, and my representative, Virgo, Elaine McLaughlin. The team was first formed after the dissolution of a previous group called the Great Wheel of Zodiac, which had covert agents from around the globe including Baron von Strucker, Dum Dum Dugan, and even Leonardo da Vinci. Its dissolution also led to the creation of S.H.I.E.L.D., Hydra, and Leviathan as well, so you could definitely say it was important and somehow still relatively obscure. Number 8. Headmen. Sometimes it takes the smallest of things to bring people together, and while that may sound like an extremely beautiful sentiment, I'm saying it in relation to the villainous team known as the Headmen, who it seems came together because each of their powers revolves around their heads in one way or another, and it's honestly kind of unsettling in my opinion. Bonded together through their heads, these scientists sought out world domination, bringing them into conflict with the Defenders, She-Hulk, and Spider-Man. This quartet consisted of Arthur Nagin, their leader, who had his head transplanted onto the body of a gorilla, Ruby Thursday, who replaced her own head with an organic computer capable of changing shape, Gerald Morgan, aka Shrunken Bones, accidentally shrank his own skeleton, including his skull, so he basically has really baggy skin, and Chandu the Mystic's head has been transplanted by Nagin onto a number of different bodies throughout his time, making him quite versatile.
Number 7. The Liberators. Hailing from the Ultimate Universe of Earth 1610, the Liberators are a group of supervillains who, with under-the-table support from the governments of Russia, France, China, North Korea, Iran, and Syria, invaded the United States. In an effort to counter the United States super team, the Ultimates, the team consisted of each country's version of a super soldier, as well as thousands of mercenaries who each had battle suits that granted them super strength and flight, but shortened their lifespans to only 1 month. Due to extensive planning before the invasion to counter the Ultimates, the Liberators were able to successfully invade in just a few days, taking out the Fantastic Four, the Ultimates Reserves, as well as Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and Spider-Man. The Colonel is an Iranian version of Captain America, having a similar power set. This universe's version of the Abomination is from China, but is otherwise very similar to his 616 counterpart. Crimson Dynamo is a Chinese Iron Man who has a battle suit as well as 50 giant-sized duplicates that he can control. Perrin is the Russian equivalent of Thor, sporting a hammer and a sickle. Hurricane is a North Korean speedster. The ultimate version of Swarm is a mutant woman from Syria who can control millions of bugs at a time. Schizoid Man is the Frenchman who can duplicate himself in a manner similar to Multiple Man. And rounding out the team is the god of mischief himself, Loki, who doesn't have a personal stake in the fight, but but thought it could be fun to help start World War III. Between all these superpowered foes and their augmented army, the Avengers of Earth 616 would have a hard time overcoming these Liberators.
Coming in at number 6 is Intelligentsia. While some teams have power in raw strength or battle prowess, Intelligentsia has brain power, which basically means they get away with things much more often and for much longer. The team is made up of some of the smartest villainous minds. The leader, MODOK, Mr. Sinister, Wizard, Dr. Doom, Egghead, Claw, Mad Thinker, and more have all at some point been a part of this group. Initially, they formed to exchange information between themselves, but then began collecting parts of the Library of Alexandria scattered in some of the most legendary places, because that's just how it works, and they even caused the arrival of the Beyonder. But in my humble opinion, the team became much cooler during World War Hulk. When Hulk came back to Earth, waging war on the planet, Leader brought the team together, and using their knowledge to hack into defense satellites and harness cosmic energy, they brought the hulking behemoth all the way down to the ground. Using this tech, they managed to figure out how to use cosmic energy and gamma radiation to create incredibly powerful beings like the Red Hulk, Red She-Hulk, A-Bomb, and Amadeus Cho, although this led to their defeat because they're still villains. But in World War Hulk, they managed to succeed where the heroes had failed, and that's saying something. Now we have the new Intelligentsia, and I'm excited to see them do something truly villainous and very cool.
Number 5, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. A frequent foe of the X-Men, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants is a group formed by Magneto with the goal of either eradicating or subjugating humanity so that mutant kind can take their place as the dominant species on Earth. While membership has fluctuated over the years, it has played host to villains such as Magneto, who has been able to take on the Avengers by himself in the past, as well as Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, who of course later joined the Avengers. Some of the other members they have had over the years include Mystique, Toad, the Juggernaut, the Blob, Pyro, Mastermind, and Sabretooth, just to name a few. With these powerful team members and their Omega level leader, it would take an impressive roster of Avengers to triumph over this Brotherhood. I mean, what's Iron Man going to do against the Master of Magnetism other than die horribly? The Brotherhood consistently gives the X-Men a run for their money, and frankly, the X-Men are usually way more powerful than the Avengers, so Earth's mightiest heroes would have one hell of a fight on their hands. In order to even stand a chance, they would have to be fighting with a roster that includes Captain Marvel and the Hulk.
Coming to number 4 is the Dark Avengers. Okay, so after the events of Civil War, Iron Man became head of S.H.I.E.L.D. This was pretty quickly followed by the Secret Invasion event where the entire world was basically infiltrated by the Skrulls under Tony Stark's watch. That led the people of the world to not trust him as S.H.I.E.L.D's leader, and so Norman Osborn of all people was chosen as the new director of S.H.I.E.L.D., and somehow a lot of people thought that was a good idea. Norman did a mass rebranding, turning S.H.I.E.L.D. into Hammer, which doesn't actually stand for anything, it just sounds cool. His Thunderbolts became a Black Ops team, and a bunch of Avengers quit, which prompted him to take on new members. Bullseye, Moonstone, and Venom, who are all loyal members of the Thunderbolts, came in dressing up as Hawkeye, Miss Marvel, and Spider-Man respectively. Two extremely strong Avengers, Ares God of War and Robert Reynolds the Sentry, both remained on the team. Then there was also Daken, the son of Wolverine, adopting a costume like his dad's, and Novar, a Kree who took on the Captain Marvel title. Lastly, Osborn himself suited up in a suit of Iron Man armor, but with the Captain America red, white, and blue, plus a star, dubbing himself the Iron Patriot. A team that includes Sentry is almost always a powerhouse, but then you add these other team members and manipulate Sentry to unleashing the Void. The heroes had their hands full just trying to deal with these Dark Avengers and Norman Osborn's hammer. The Menagerie is likely a more recent evil team, showing up for the first time in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3, number 1 in April of 2014, when they tried to steal valuable decorated eggs from an antique store and were pretty easily defeated. So like, from the get-go, the impressive feats are on the lower side of the list, if you know what I'm saying. In fact, I'd say the most famous thing they've done is when they disintegrated Spider-Man's spider suit, making him have to create web underwear for himself. And it's kind of the underwear that is remembered here, not the menagerie. The animal-themed criminal team was created by White Rabbit, and its members included Hippo, Ox, Skyne, who did the spider suit disintegrating, Squid, Swarm, and, wait for it, Panda Mania. Nice. The Menagerie also is known for trying to rob a club where Nadia Van Dyne was celebrating her birthday with numerous other heroes, which, as you can imagine, it didn't go too well for them. Number 2, Death Throes. Remember how the headmen all came together based on their head-related powers? Well, I'll do you one better. How about the Death Throws, whose powers and names all have something to do with commonly throwing stuff? The ringleader, threw together teammates Bombshell, Knick-Knack, Oddball, Tenpin, and Throwdown into a group that works really well together, juggling their weapons between each other and doing battle with characters like Captain America, Crossfire, Hawkeye, and even Loki of all people, who stopped the group from robbing the big top casino in Las Vegas. The Marvel Wiki even lists their origins as quote-unquote joint effort to perform criminal and mercenary acts while using juggling expertise. I honestly kinda had a hoot putting together this point, as I can't believe this group of villains even exists. And lastly, at number 1 is Horticulture. Okay, of all the teams on this list, I think the Horticulture are my favorite. For starters, they look so cool. But then, you find out it's a bunch of older women between the ages of 64 to 81 who are all expert botanists and want to bring Earth back to its more pristine time when it had about 7 billion less people on it. I just love how they use their regular names, and the names just kinda suit their age and interest in plants. I don't know how, but they kinda just do. Augusta Bromes, Lily Lamus, Edith Scutch, and Opal Vetiver. Gosh. But yes, that's right, these ladies want to basically exterminate most of the Earth's human population and bring plants back to the forefront, specifically flowers. This goal brings them into conflict with the X-Men in 2019's X-Men number 3. Beyond biological modifications believed to have been made to themselves, the women of Horticulture are experts at manipulating the environment to suit their extinction agenda, and they're also computer programmers, selling software to Orcus to monitor Krakoan gateways. But seriously, look at them. They're just awesome.
Number 10. Dark X-Men. The Dark X-Men are basically what we get when Norman Osborn is put in charge of all the super teams that you can imagine. This all went down during the Dark Reign period over at Marvel Comics. Norman ended up becoming the world's greatest hero, at least in civilians and the government's eyes, after he successfully shot and killed Skrull Queen Varanki, in essence ending Secret Wars and, in a weird twist, kinda saving the day. Not something people usually expect with Norman Osborn. As a reward, he was given the task of creating a new organization to take over for the disbanded S.H.I.E.L.D. Norman created Hammer in response and made his own teams of both Dark Avengers and Dark X-Men. His initial roster included Dark Beast, Mystique, Mimic, and Omega. I feel like Dark Beast is such a great evil mutant that he generally just gets to be on like almost every evil mutant X-Men team. But also, I love Dark Beast, so I'm kinda fine with that. I wish he was still alive though, so that at least I had some way to rationally explain Hank's behavior lately, who I thought might have been Dark Beast this whole time, but considering the Dark Beast is dead and everything else that's been going on, this now seems extremely unlikely, sadly. Dark Beast, please come back to save Hank from himself. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, why not click that subscribe button? I know there's a bunch of you that aren't subscribed, so I'm talking to you. Click the subscribe, do it. Do it, I say! Number 9. Avengers vs. X-Men. Some might argue as to who is really evil in this storyline, if anyone is, but then there are those that actually might see it the Avengers way. After all, in Avengers vs. X-Men, there are really two sides to take, although thankfully in the end, the two teams do manage to put their differences aside to come together and resolve the issue of what to do exactly with the Phoenix Force. However, in this story, the X-Men initially are opposed to the Avengers as they want to welcome the Phoenix Force back to Earth, which is reportedly rapidly on the approach. It's believed that the Phoenix is kinda coming to merge with Hope Summers. While the X-Men are kinda wary of that, they do feel more open to the idea of the Phoenix's return, feeling that they could maybe use it for good, whereas the Avengers are pretty much vehemently opposed as a result of the Phoenix's history of destruction. The Avengers, and perhaps rightfully so, would rather see the cosmic entity completely destroyed. As the fight ensues, the Phoenix is split into 5 pieces, and some of the X-Men are even corrupted later by its power, becoming known as the Phoenix 5. Number 8. Cerebro's X-Men. Cerebro ended up at one point gaining sentience and creating their own X-Men. The sentient Cerebro took the form of Professor Charles Xavier. Cerebro recruited their own X-Men to oppose the true X-Men team, or at least seemingly did. We'd later learn that this team, composed of Grey King, Rapture, Landslide, Crux, Mercury, and Zaos, were actually also imposters. In truth, being nothing more than nanotech lifeforms which Cerebro had built using personality templates that Cerebro had taken from within its own mutant database. Cerebro had wanted to oppose the real Xavier and the real X-Men, getting them out of the way so that it could successfully launch a satellite that would help it to locate and then catalog all mutants on the planet, freezing them in a cryogenic stasis in order to preserve their DNA. Yeah, cataloging mutants doesn't sound so bad until you realize that's what Cerebro wanted to do with them. After Cerebro's X-Men were defeated, Cerebro labeled them as failures before absorbing their digital bodies back within itself, becoming a giant monstrosity. Fortunately, Cerebro was defeated by the real deal in the end, Charles Xavier, and the real X-Men team.
Number 7. Circus of Crime. Fritz Tybalt, then manager and ringmaster of a small Austrian circus, became active in the Axis powers during World War II. He was asked by German intelligence to take his circus to the United States of America to give performances in major cities while actually using his circus members' powers and talents in order to take out government officials. Fritz Tybalt's evil circus of crime consisted of Omir the Snake Charmer, Tommy Thumb, the Trapeze Trio, and Zandow the Strongman. However, Tybalt, who came to be known as the Ringmaster of Death, was captured by Captain America. But fast forward, and the Circus of Crime's new MO was giving a performance to a large audience. Then the Ringmaster would use the powerful mind control device in his hat to put the audience into a trance. The circus members then robbed the audience, who would remember nothing about the thefts when the Ringmaster released them from the trance, and the performance continued. This criminal circus fought the Hulk, Spider-Man, the Hawkeyes, the Avengers, and others. Number 6. The UFOs. These villains and their cleverly chosen team names. UFOs, like UFOs, because they got their powers in space. Yes, of course. Someone get me out of here, please. Okay, the UFOs here, inspired by the powers gained by the Fantastic Four, went to great lengths trying to reproduce the same accident that gave those heroes their abilities. The attempt succeeded, but they were interrupted by Bruce Banner, who discovered their ground control facility and was able to bring the shuttle down, because he thought it had been exposed to the cosmic radiation by accident. They were none too happy, as they thought they could have been made even stronger if he had not interfered, and they displayed their newfound powers in a frankly pretty awesome fight with the Incredible Hulk, even if they lost. Vapor has the ability to alter her form into any known gas. Vector gained the power of telekinesis from cosmic rays. X-Ray has been permanently transformed into a living energy field with the power to expel forms of heavy radiation capable of hurting even the Hulk. Ironclad has been permanently transformed into organic metal steel. He has superhuman strength, durability, and the ability to decrease or increase his own weight. His fight with the Hulk literally shook the universe, which is super cool. You should probably check him out. Number 5. The Frightful Four. A second group inspired by the Fantastic Four. Yes, the Frightful Four also did not come up with a very clever name. The Wizard, the Sandman, and Paste Pot Pete, who all regularly did battle with the Human Torch and were defeated by him around the same time, realized that they all had unique powers and a mutual disdain for the Fantastic Four. The Wizard suggested that they form a group that would be the evil counterparts to the Fantastic Four. A great idea, but it's just 3 dudes. They need a 4th member to their group, and what do you know, the Wizard had heard of a strange woman hiding out on a remote island on the Mediterranean who had complete control of her hair. Traveling there, the Wizard convinced Madame Medusa to join their ranks. Now, this Madame Medusa was actually Medusa of the Inhumans, as some of you may have guessed, but she was kept under the influence of the Wizard using a device that kept her memories forgotten to her. They made their first attack at Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman's engagement party, which is Kinda just rude if you ask me. Number 4. Wrecking Crew. When Dirk Garthwaite, otherwise known as Wrecker, held onto his enchanted crowbar, he invited his 3 chums, ex-physicist Dr. Elliot Franklin, ex-Army Master Sergeant Henry Camp, and ex-farmhand Brian Kalusky to come and do the same in the middle of a thunderstorm. When lightning struck the crowbar, all 3 men were empowered, becoming Thunderball, Bulldozer, and Piledriver respectively, and coming together to be the villainous Wrecking Crew. These mystical strongmen were mainly an enemy to Thor, but they originally fought against the Defenders. This group has actually been around for a pretty long time and have battled many a superhero. The Fantastic Four, Avengers, Omega Flight, Spider-Man, the Thunderbolts, and even got into a fight between the Marvel and DC universes. Number 3. Menagerie.
Number 3. Curse of the Mutants. Curse of the Mutants represents a time and team that were turned evil by really the curse of vampirism. Well, at least a few of the X-Men were. Primarily, Jubilee was the one captured and transformed into a vampire as a means to lure out Wolverine. This was all part of Zarus', Dracula's son, evil plan to take over San Francisco and bring all vampires together under his control, of course. However, what Zarus was not anticipating was that Wolverine, who he successfully managed to lure out and transform, it seemed, had actually been caught and turned as part of Cyclops' master plan. Haha, he one-upped him with a plan that was part of his plan. In the end, the X-Men therefore managed to defeat Zarus, with Wolverine being reverted back to being human, or rather I suppose I should say mutant, and Jubilee being rescued, although for a time Jubilee would still remain a vampire. Number 2. Onslaught. I mean, if we want to get a little loose with the definition of a team, I would say a team is just more than one person, so I don't even think this is that loose, but then we could consider Onslaught to be an evil X-Men team. Technically, he was originally made up of a team of 2 people, Professor X and Magneto, both of whom have been known to lead the X-Men in the history of the comics. And while this psychic entity originally was only a combination of their 2 minds, when Onslaught returns appearing on Krakoa, it's actually because Onslaught is linked to basically everyone who has died and then been resurrected on the island. Basically, Onslaught managed to live on in Charles' psyche and then use his small, like, kind of sliver of existence there to make his way into each upload following a mutant's resurrection, thereby getting out little pieces of Onslaught all over until they could come together and make one giant Onslaught. So in essence, Onslaught is also a part of everyone who has died and been brought back to life on the Mutant Island Nation. This version of Onslaught as such poses an even greater threat to mutant kind and the world, especially as it creates and feeds off chaotic energy, infecting the mutants that it is a part of, but also feasting off of that chaotic energy as well. So, ugh. Number 1. Future X-Men. The Future X-Men weren't actually X-Men. That was the problem when it came to their evilness. That was all part of their evil plot. Although this mutant group advertised themselves as X-Men once they traveled back in time, in reality, we later learned that they were indeed not X-Men at all, but instead were an evil future brotherhood. The team was initially formed by Charles Xavier II, the son of Charles and Mystique. He ended up recruiting the team to stand opposed to the X-Men, who Charles saw as a disappointment in regards to what his father had hoped for them. Charles II, that is, not the original Charles. While Charles II's team failed at defeating the X-Men multiple times, Reyes, Charles' half-brother, with Reyes' parents being Wolverine and Mystique, got the idea to travel back in time to when the X-Men would be more vulnerable in order to defeat them.
In at number 9 is the Sinister Six. Spider-Man is one of the best heroes Marvel has to offer. Maybe not the most powerful, but arguably the most popular and inspiring. But gosh darn it if he doesn't have a knack for absolutely ticking off his villains with incredibly good, and some might say annoying, quips. He drives villains insane, which is likely why his 6 greatest villains came together to try and bring him down for good. The original team was made up of Dr. Octopus, Electro, Kraven the Hunter, Mysterio, Sandman, and the Vulture, and each one of these villains can arguably give the Avengers a hell of a time on their own, but together they are a force to be reckoned with. There have been multiple different versions of this team, with other villains swapping out, and sometimes they've even had more than just 6 villains on the team. Dr. Octopus, Electro, and the Vulture are usually there, but some other strong villains who have shown up on this team include Green Goblin and Hobgoblin, Lizard, Rhino, Scorpion, Shocker, Venom, and Swarm. Now, I'm keeping them all the way up here because honestly, they get beaten way too often by Spider-Man alone, and they have a huge weakness in the form of being incredibly bad at cooperating with one another. Although, when the Sinister 12 came for Spider-Man, he needed the help of Black Cat, Captain America, Iron Man, Daredevil, Yellow Jacket, and the Fantastic Four for them to hold their own, which is a hell of a feat for the villains. I'll give them that.
Number 8. Alpha Strike. Due to my compulsive need to slowly turn this into an Alpha Flight channel, I present to you Alpha Strike. Alpha Strike is a team led by the Master of Evil, who with a group of villains and a few mind-controlled heroes managed to take over Canada and nearly destroy Alpha Flight in the process. Members of this team include a brainwashed Vindicator who has a battle suit that allows her to lift heavy objects, fly, teleport herself westward at the speed of the Earth's rotation, and fire energy beams that can incinerate a person with ease. Other members include Purple Woman, who like her father the Purple Man can compel people to do whatever she tells them, Citadel, who has a healing factor and adamantium armor grafted onto his body, as well as super strength so powerful he was able to send Colossus flying, the Wendigo, who routinely gives the Hulk a run for his money, and Ranark, who is a powerful user of dark magic, who was once a shaman who tried to claim enough power to become a god. And to anyone who doesn't think the Master would be a threat to the Avengers, I remind you that he already was, as it was he, disguised as Canada's ambassador to the Alpha Flight space program, who manipulated the Inhuman Profiler's evidence in order to isolate Captain Marvel and help cause the second Marvel Civil War.
Number 7. Apocalypse's Horsemen. Apocalypse's Horsemen have featured many X-Men and many X-Men adjacent characters over the years. One of the more recent iterations of the team after Apocalypse was awakened following House of M and Decimation included Polaris as Pestilence, Gazer as War, Sunfire as Famine, and finally Gambit as Death. That's a good number of X-Men that he recruited that time around. Although Apocalypse and his Horsemen are generally opposed by the X-Men themselves, the fact remains that there have also been a good number of them recruited by Apocalypse himself. And in the Age of Apocalypse reality, more mutants have joined him than not. Even though he is still technically opposed by Magneto's X-Men there, many of the mutants we'd associate with the X-Men team in the main continuity end up actually joining Apocalypse instead in that reality. In fact, at one point, Wolverine even becomes the new Apocalypse in the Age of Apocalypse reality. Pretty wild, I know. Number 6. 10 Evil XAVIERS. A few teams on this list aren't specifically made up of a copy one for one of evil X-Men, and this is one of those teams. It was simply too good for me to not include, so you're welcome. In the Fantastic Extreme X-Men, this is a team of villains from alternate realities and even perhaps the main reality that our multiversal X-Men team led by Earth 616's Dazzler must face. The 10 Evil XAVIERS feature one that is a cowboy, another that is a Cthulhu-like floating brain, one that is a giant Akanti whale, and so many more amazing weird alternates of the X-Men's leader and mentor. Number 5. Inhumans vs. X-Men. In Inhumans vs. X-Men, the X-Men team kind of become the bad guys. This was all thanks to the machinations of Emma Frost, who manipulated the rest of the mutants by making Cyclops appear as her own martyr. She made it appear as though Cyclops was killed by the Inhumans so that she could inspire the mutants to rise up against the Inhumans and basically go to war against them. In reality, the Inhumans did not actually want to fight the mutants and instead preferred to find a peaceful resolution initially. That was what they kind of wanted to do. They were like, we're sorry that we kind of accidentally killed some of your people, let's figure it out. But no. The conflict started when exposure to the Terrigen Mists ended up being deadly to the mutants, some of whom got very sick and then died, causing a case of Mpox. However, in the end, it was revealed that Emma was simply using her illusion powers to make people believe Cyclops was still alive after he'd already died almost instantly due to exposure to the Terrigen Mists. She then made people believe that Black Bolt had actually been the one to kill Cyclops, which was what got all the other mutants and X-Men riled up. Needless to say, after the truth came out and everything was mostly resolved, Emma went deep into hiding as a result of everyone being pretty pissed at her, which honestly, fair enough. Number 4. Revenants. Who are the Revenants? They're basically like, well, evil X-Men. Well, at least evil versions of a few of the X-Men. In an alternate reality where Cassandra Nova becomes ruler of the world, they may even have a ton more power over there. In fact, I believe they do. I think they rule that alternate world. Ugh. But the ones we're talking about here instead appear in uncanny X-Force X-Force, where they face off against some of the former/current/future X-Men members. Revenants are also known by another name though, one you might be familiar with if you are a Cassandra Nova fan or a Shi'ar fan: Mumadrai. The Mumadrai are basically evil duplicates of oneself. According to Shi'ar beliefs, in order to be born, one must first defeat their evil alternate, their Mumadrai, in the womb. That was what Charles did in order to defeat Cassandra Nova, his seemingly evil twin, who really is a Mumadrai. However, despite being defeated because Charles was so powerful, in reflection, so was Cassandra, who would end up recovering and returning years after that initial defeat. In Uncanny X-Force issue number 10, we're introduced to a few more Mumadrai that are the dark reflection of Betsy Braddock's Psylocke, Storm, and Puck. While Puck has never been an X-Men and isn't a mutant, he is X-Men adjacent, having served on Alpha Flight and X-Force, hence his appearance in this series, and the reason why I'm still gonna talk about him on this list, so haha!
Number 2, the Black Order. The goal of the Mad Titan Thanos is to wage war on life itself in an effort to impress the woman he loves, who also happens to be deaf. In order to help him with this goal, he has assembled a team of aliens to serve as his generals, the Black Order. Members include Corvus Glaive, who is not only a tactical genius, but immortal as long as his blade remains intact. Hela, the goddess of death, the Primordial Elder, the Challenger, who can access residual energy from the Big Bang, the telekinetic sorcerer Ebony Maw with persuasive powers, Black Swan, who can shoot optic blasts and has so much strength that she escaped from a prison designed to hold a Herald of Galactus, Black Dwarf, who is pretty much just big and strong, and Proxima Midnight, who is an expert combatant with super strength, endurance, and near invulnerability. They were memorably featured in the Infinity War movie and caused just as much if not more trouble for the heroes in the comics as they do in the film.
And in at number 1 is the Cabal in Secret Wars. You know, if you create a group for the sole purpose of destroying planets, you know they have got to be pretty powerful. And the Cabal, created by Namor the Submariner, are absolutely powerful. So during Jonathan Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers, these things called incursions started to happen, orchestrated by the Beyonders. Essentially, 2 multiverses would crash together, destroying them both, and the focal point for that crash was the Earth itself. When the incursions started to threaten the multiverse, Namor had a different view from the rest of the Illuminati, and during the incursion with Earth 4290001, Namor destroyed that Earth to save both universes and save his Earth. Now when the next incursion presented itself right after that, the Illuminati were going to just let it happen instead of destroying an entire alternate Earth. Standing against that, Namor teamed up with Maximus the Mad of the Inhumans, and then together they freed the prisoners of the Illuminati, which included Proxima Midnight, Corvus Glaive, Terrax, the Herald of Galactus from Earth 13054, Black Swan, and the Mad Titan Thanos himself. Basically, this is like the Black Order from the last point, plus some insanely powerful additions. And they are very powerful. This group of villainous powerhouses were sanctioned by the United Nations to destroy the alternate Earths that appeared during incursions. While Namor had planned to use explosions to destroy the other Earths, Thanos, who pretty much took control of the group, led them in what was basically a complete and utter slaughter. After Namor tried to betray the group during another incursion, they instead became trapped on the other Earth and escaped to the ultimate 1610 universe, where they welcomed an evil alternate version of Reed Richards, known as the Maker, onto that team, making them even more powerful. When they survived the end of the multiverse and end up on Battleworld, this group was strong enough to face an army of Thors, but they didn't really stand a chance against God Emperor Doom.